The rusted nail glinted in the early light, its jagged edge a sharp contrast against the bright red notice that fluttered from my front gate like a warning flag. I could hardly believe my eyes as I ripped it free, my heart racing with each word I read. It wasn't a mere notice, it was an emergency repossession notice from the Greater Simmons Valley Homeowners Association. My property had been marked, and the accusations within felt like an assault: livestock containment breaches, unauthorized fencing designs. Their grip on authority felt suffocating. I didn't even live in Simmons Valley. I lived right next to it. The audacity of these people sending an eviction notice was staggering. My small, humble farm was my sanctuary, built on dedication and family roots, and here was this so-called authority, trampling my peace with rules that didn't even apply to me. Just as disbelief turned into outrage, a matte black SUV crested the rise of my gravel driveway, engines purring like predatory animals. Two men emerged, their tactical gear clinging to them like armor. Clipboard in hand, clipboard guy marched toward me, followed closely by Buzzcut, whose stern expression told me that he wouldn't hesitate to enforce whatever nonsense Karen Whitaker had concocted. "Sir, we're here to conduct a visual inspection on behalf of the Simmons Valley HOA, clipboard guy stated, a rehearsed authority in his tone. I blinked at him, incredulity washing over me. "Do you have a warrant for that?" I asked, my voice steady, though my pulse quickened. "No warrant is necessary," he shot back, the words rolling off his tongue as if practiced in front of a mirror. "Under municipal subcode, we have authorization." I felt my hands clench at my sides. "If you're not law enforcement, you're trespassing. Get off my property." I stepped forward, determination sparking in my chest like a flame. Buzzcut adjusted himself, his hand drifting worryingly near his holster, but I didn't flinch. "Unless you intend to arrest me, I won't allow you to cross this threshold." They exchanged nervous glances before clipboard guy smirked. "We'll be noting your resistance. This will escalate." "Oh, I hope it does," I retorted sharply, savoring the words. "I love paperwork, and I'm quite good at it." With that, they turned, defeated, but I could sense the storm brewing just off the horizon. I snatched my phone, snapping photos of their SUV, the license plate, and the HOA badge taped poorly inside their windshield. Fueled by adrenaline, I posted online, exposing them to the local community with the caption, "New HOA cosplay unit spotted." The engagement was immediate. Comments flooded in, neighbors rallied, each sharing tales of past encounters with the HOA, their collective stories creating a tapestry of fear woven with threads of defiance. "Same guys came for me last week," one neighbor chimed in. Another added, "This is intimidation, plain and simple." Amidst the swirling chaos of camaraderie and support, I felt a mix of empowerment and dread. It wasn't just my fight anymore. The seeds of rebellion had been sown, and everyone was ready to join the rally. But it was Karen Whitaker herself who called next, her voice syrupy sweet and dripping with condescension. "Mr. Callahan, just calling to confirm you received the formal notice." "Yes, Karen. The one you nailed to my gate like a warning from a horror film." Her laughter echoed through the phone, a condescending melody. "It's not illegal under our new emergency expansion guidelines." "What guidelines?" I questioned, my grief morphing into rage. "The ones we voted on last quarter," she replied, "which you weren't invited to." My world turned upside down. The relentless violation of my private space resonated deeper than just a simple eviction notice. She'd drawn the battle lines, and as I stepped out into the cool evening air, I gazed across my field of goats, unaware of the architectural war being waged for their home. That night, I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning as the shadows of doubt danced across my walls. I had to take action, but what? I rose early the next morning, steeling myself for a trip to the county office. Perhaps I could gather enough evidence to sway the authorities. The clerk raised an eyebrow when I recounted my tale of deceit. "You're number 12, you know," she said matter-of-factly, crossing her arms. "Most people just pay up and hope they go away." "I'm not most people," I said, locking eyes with her. "What do I need to do?" She handed me a sticky note with a name scrawled across it. Sheriff Luke Callahan. "My brother." I swallowed, overwhelmed by the weight of unresolved secrets. Call him, she urged. He'll help. After work, I called Luke. He listened quietly, taking in every word. You're not just a target, brother. You're a headline if Karen gets her way. This isn't just nuisance, it's systemic. She's trying to control you, and there are others like you. This isn't her first rodeo. Why does that matter now? I pressed. Because we need proof, clean and solid. Get ready. This is only the beginning. The line went dead, and I felt as though I was standing on the edge of a cliff, winds howling, uncertainty clawing at my ankles. 1 foot over the ledge, and I would plunge deep into a raging battle I had no intention of backing down from. Karen would find that I was more than just an easy target. I was a force ready to be reckoned with. The next morning, the storm clouds gathered, ominous and dark over my head. I stepped outside, my fist closing around the edge of the eviction notice still pinned to my gate. I was being watched, and the games were just beginning. With each passing moment, I felt the fuse of rebellion ignite, ready to explode, and all I had to do was light the spark. I was being watched, and the games were just beginning. With each passing moment, I felt the fuse of rebellion ignite, ready to explode, and all I had to do was light the spark. Fueled by an unsettling mix of determination and dread, I made my way to the barn that afternoon, my mind racing through plans and methods. I needed evidence of Karen's shady dealings, something concrete to bolster my case and rally my neighbors around me. But first, I had to keep my eyes peeled for any ominous figures lurking in the shadows. As I entered the barn, the familiar scent of hay and earth calmed me, reminding me of simpler days filled with laughter, not litigation. But as I turned liquid steady on my heels, a figure caught my peripheral vision. Darren, my new worker who had seemed so eager just a couple of weeks ago, stood too close to my plans and records, eyes darting around nervously. What's going on, Darren? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, despite a rising suspicion clenching at my gut. Oh, just checking the wiring on the fence, he said quickly, lifting his hands in an innocent gesture. But the flush in his cheeks betrayed him. There was something off about his demeanor, a fidgety energy that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I stepped forward, glancing down at the tools and materials piled close by. Something tells me you're not just inspecting the fence. What's in that bag? He hesitated, caught off guard. My looming presence must have startled him because he dropped the bag, spilling out sheets of paper, handwritten notes, and what looked eerily like cryptic blueprints. I felt the rush of air leave my lungs. It was my work, my designs. What are you doing with those? I barked, anger dripping from my words as I lunged to grab the papers before he could even respond. I swear, I wasn't going to, he stammered, backing away, but I was already flipping through the pages. My heart raced as I realized the implications of this discovery. They weren't just idle blueprints, they were detailed maps of my property and surrounding areas, highlighting the weaknesses of my fences, the points of entry they could exploit. This was a full-on reconnaissance. Are you spying for them? Are you working for the HOA? I confronted, the accusation hanging heavy in the air. No. I thought I could help you, he pleaded, desperation painted on his face. Help me. By betraying me. His gaze shifted, and suddenly, the naive worker on my farm started to unravel. I didn't mean to get involved, I just wanted a paycheck. It's not what you think. Karen. She has something on me. I couldn't say no. The admission hit me like a battering ram. What kind of secrets did this woman hold over him? My mind raced through scenarios, connections, and tactics. You tell her about my operations, and she'll ruin me. Is that what you want? Please, just listen. He cried, desperation etched across his features. I thought I could gather intel and then leak it to you. I didn't think it would come to this. I stared at him, wrestling with my dread and his imploring eyes. Perhaps it was the glimmer of hope buried beneath the rubble of deceit that made me relent. You're in this deep, I warned, trying to weigh my options. If you want to help, you have to be honest with me from this point forward. No half-truths. No double-crossing. He nodded vigorously, relief washing over him. "Okay, I promise. But I need to lay low. They'll notice if I suddenly disappear." "Then keep your head down," I instructed, a plan slowly forming in my mind. I knew that bringing Darren into the fold would be risky, but if he had valuable insight into the HOA's operations, perhaps we both could find a way to turn the tide together. We concealed the blueprints in a hidden compartment in the barn, safe from prying eyes. That very night, I began to strategize, how to get the evidence I needed, not just to save my land, but to expose Karen for the manipulative tyrant she was. Over the next few days, I kept busy, creating seemingly normal tasks for Darren while he worked to gather intel. I planted small seeds of defiance within the community, sharing a few of the blueprints with trusted neighbors who'd experienced her tyranny firsthand. Stories began to circulate, a rising tide of rebellion against the oppressive rule of the HOA. But then my phone buzzed with a text late one night, a string of images sent from an unknown number. I opened the message cautiously. A series of photos depicted a clandestine meeting in progress, dark figures huddled under a flickering street lamp in the back lot behind the HOA headquarters. Among them, I caught a glimpse of Karen. My heart pounded as another community member confirmed they witnessed her meeting potential buyers and orchestrating shady dealings. They were planning something sinister, but what? As if in response to my growing fears, an image of my goats grazing innocently juxtaposed the dark deeds unfolding in the shadows. I realized then that this was not just about land. It was about freedom, community, and defending what was ours. With Darren's newfound knowledge and my grit as fuel, I could feel the reckoning building. I would expose Karen and pit the neighbors against her. It was time for a confrontation, a showdown where all the masked truths would finally be revealed, and I would be standing tall amid the rising storm. As dawn broke, I summoned a gathering at my barn. The air buzzed thick with anticipation, tempered by the undeniable weight of our shared histories. Years of defiance, stories of chaos under Karen's iron rule. Each neighbor who arrived carried pieces of their own tales, and they brought them to me, offering strength against the puppet mistress. The warmth of their solidarity ignited a hope deep within me. This wasn't merely about reclaiming land, it was a movement, a force gathering, essential tools in my arsenal against the tyranny of the HOA. We stood on the precipice of something monumental, and I could feel the ground beneath shuddering, a reckoning on the horizon. The battleground had been drawn, and all it would take was one final push to break Karen's grip and reclaim our freedom. The battleground had been drawn, and all it would take was one final push to break Karen's grip and reclaim our freedom. Under the barn's low beams, I faced my fellow neighbors, each with expressions that ranged from fear to steely determination. "Karen thinks she can control us," I began, my voice steady. "But she's underestimated the power of this community. We're no longer isolated, we're a force." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I could see familiar faces, some grimaced from years of trouble, others lit by the spark of rebellion kindling within them. I caught Darren's eye behind me. He was nervous but knew the stakes. "We need to gather more evidence, real evidence," I continued. "Darren has intel on her plans, but we need to know what she's hiding. I want to expose her dealings to the entire community, to break the hold she has over us." A farmer named Lydia, a stout woman with fiery red hair, piped up. "If she's meeting with shady buyers, let's find out who they are. If we can record those transactions, we can put a stop to her nonsense for good." Exactly. I agreed, excitement thrumming through me. And the more we band together, the stronger we'll be in confronting her. Each of us will play a part. I distributed roles. Lydia and her husband would gather more intel on Karen's meetings, while a couple of the younger folks would start spreading whispers in town about the HOA's tactics. We'd create a tidal wave of awareness that could not be ignored. As the meeting broke up, I felt a sense of unity and purpose solidifying among us. This wasn't just a fight to save my property, it was a fight for each of us. Over the next week, we executed our plan. Lydia's crew dug up leads that drew connections to a mysterious company tied to Karen, while Darren learned about secret meetings designed to undermine our rights. Each evening, we convened to strategize, bits of information piling up like stones in a fortress against her tyranny. But Karen was clever. Her watchful eyes were everywhere. It wasn't long before I noticed strange figures lurking in the shadows whenever I stepped out, tailing our movements. They were watching us. One night, as I returned from a meeting with Darren, something inside me warned that danger was closer than I realized. Then I spotted it, a flicker of headlights illuminating the barn's entrance, quickly snuffing out. I turned off my own lights and crept toward the barn, the darkness swallowing me as I approached. I peered through a crack, my breath caught in my throat. There she was, Karen, her sharp features illuminated by the beam of a flashlight as she stood outside, together with two men I recognized as the HOA enforcers, Buzzcut and Clipboard Guy. "We need to act quickly," Karen urged, her voice low and conspiratorial. "They're forming a coalition. If we don't squash them now, we'll be outnumbered. They're planning to make a public display of their claims, rally the town." My heart raced as I leaned closer, straining to hear. She was catching wind of our movement. We had to act fast. I crept back, urgency prickling at my skin. I gathered the group at dawn, the gravity of our mission weighing heavily on us. I shared Karen's plan to crush us before we could rise, and the flames of defiance ignited. "Karen may have her enforcers, but we have each other," I declared, rallying their spirits. "Let's turn her tactics against her. We'll create our own public display, expose her lies wide enough for all to see. We'll confront her at the next HOA meeting." Nods of determination filled the barn as the plan took shape. We would chronicle everything, gather the evidence we had, and prepare to unveil it publicly. We'd show our community what they'd been blind to in the shadows. In the days that followed, we built our case. Each new discovery fed our momentum. Karen's hidden meetings, the plan to sell swaths of land under false pretenses, and the financial ties to the shady company that were now painfully clear. Everything she thought was buried was coming back to haunt her. Finally, the evening of the HOA meeting arrived. Adrenaline coursed through me, each face I knew giving me strength. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of the community center, the HOA board sat at the front, Karen perched like a queen, radiating authority. As I stood, surrounded by my neighbors, I felt an electric pulse of courage. We were no longer the victims hiding in her shadows. We had become a band of warriors ready to reclaim our rights. When it was my turn to speak, I looked directly at Karen, her eyes narrowing as she continued her rehearsed facade. "Those who think they can control us, deceive us, and silence us do so at their own peril. We're no longer afraid, and we're here to reveal the truth." The room resonated with quiet murmurs as I laid bare our findings, presenting evidence of her shady dealings, the documentation we gathered, and the alliances she formed in secret. The air thickened with shock and awareness as I watched disbelief sprinkle through the crowd. It was a moment of reckoning, and I could feel the shift in the room. "Enough is enough," I concluded, pointing directly at Karen. "We will stand together, fight for our community, and reclaim our rights." The room erupted, voices of support rising in unison, drowning out the shocked silence. In that moment, I knew without a doubt, we were more than neighbors. We were the force that would bring light into the shadows. Karen's reign of fear was about to come crashing down. Karen's reign of fear was about to come crashing down. The energy in the room was electric as my neighbors roared in support, fists pumping the air in defiance of the tyranny they had silently endured for too long. I had sparked a flame, and it surged like wildfire, consuming any remaining doubt of our strength. But just as the tide seemed to shift fully in our favor, Karen rose, her demeanor icy, despite the chaos around her. "Let's not forget," she said, her voice calm and condescending, "this is just one side of the story. Accusations without proof can mean nothing, can they?" The room fell silent, eyes darting between her and the evidence I had presented. I needed to hold this momentum, to ensure they didn't buy her deceit. "The proof is there," I countered, gathering my strength. "All of you know the truth. We've all seen how she operates. We deserve a community where we feel safe, where decisions are made together, not dictated by a tyrant." Lydia stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "We are more than ready to stand together. You've taken more than just our rights. You've taken our trust in each other. We're done staying silent. We're here to fight for our community." With that, a chorus of voices erupted anew. Neighbors rallied, recounting their own experiences with Karen's manipulations, each story reinforcing the pieces of evidence I had laid bare, like bricks constructing a wall against her lies. As each person stepped up to share their truth, Karen's expression darkened. The veneer of her authority began to crack, and I could see the panic creeping under her calm facade. She leaned into her board members, whispering urgently. Minutes stretched like hours as the cacophony of unity drowned out her frantic conversations. "Enough," she finally shouted, her voice slicing through the room's energy. "You think this will change anything? It's more complicated than you realize. The HOA's power stems from what you give us. If you all truly want change, you'll need to understand the rules." I stepped forward defiantly. "Change comes with challenging the status quo, Karen. You wield authority through intimidation, but we are here to say we will no longer be intimidated. Your threats won't silence us." Glancing around the room, I felt the solidarity of my neighbors again, a wall of determination behind me. "We've taken the first step tonight. This is our community. We will reform the HOA, hold you accountable, and protect our rights." Karen's eyes flashed with fury, but it was clear her grip was slipping. She attempted to regain control, but the tide had shifted beyond her reach. With each passing moment, the crowd grew more emboldened, rallying behind our cause. A hand shot up in the back, breaking through the noise. It was Mrs. Jenkins, a beloved local teacher who had remained quiet during most of Karen's tyrannies. "What happens next?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "How do we make sure we're not steamrolled again?" "We form a new committee," I responded, emboldened by her question. "A community-focused committee that represents all voices. We'll rebuild this HOA to serve us, bring transparency and fairness back into the equation, so no one can pull strings behind closed doors." The crowd erupted again, this time in a chorus of agreement, and it felt as if the very walls of the community center shook with our resolve. People cheered and clapped, momentum building as my neighbors recognized the power of collective action. With the groundwork laid, Karen's facade cracked further. She stood helpless, watching as her empire began to unravel in plain sight. For the first time since she'd claimed dominance over our community, I could see fear flickering in her eyes. It was intoxicating. As the meeting progressed, we laid out plans to formally draft a proposal for a new committee and invite others to join us at the next voting session. Each step we took moved us further away from oppression and closer to freedom. Finally, as the meeting adjourned, a wave of exhilaration washed over me. Among friends, neighbors, and allies, the journey that lay ahead would be hard and riddled with challenges. But the fear that had bound us for so long had finally shattered, replaced by a powerful belief in our mission. As we filed out of the community center, several neighbors clapped me on the back, their faces glowing with resolve. And as I turned to Darren, his nervous energy replaced with newfound confidence, he smiled. "I can't believe we did it." "No," I said, my heart bursting with pride. "We're just getting started." In the following weeks, we focused on mobilizing. Flyers advertised our new vision, community meetings fostered open discussions, and voices rang louder than the whispers that once ruled us. We gathered signatures and rallied support, transforming our anger into a vibrant movement. The night finally arrived for the balloting changes. The events unfolded like clockwork. As I stood at the front of the community center once again, watching my neighbors gather, I felt a sense of belonging, a tapestry woven from our stories, dreams, and hopes. When the voting commenced, Karen fought hard against us, but every sneer and jab she unleashed was met with unwavering resolve. As the final votes were tallied, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Time seemed to stretch as the announcer stood in front, the final number hanging in the air like a dare. And the results are, in favor of the new community committee. Cheers erupted, a jubilant roar of triumph igniting the room. Faces lit up in disbelief, joy, unity, a kaleidoscope of emotions. We embraced one another, laughter ringing out as the weight of fear lifted. Karen stood alone, visibly shaken. Her empire had crumbled, but to my surprise, I felt a flicker of pity for her. She couldn't adapt to a world where people defied her control, and that made her weak. As the celebrations continued, I exchanged glances with my neighbors, united under a common cause and filled with hope for a brighter future. We had taken back our power, redefining our community not just as a piece of land, but a place of belonging, resilience, and courage. We had emerged from the shadows, staunch fighters armed with the truth. No longer victims, we had carved a new path forward. Together, we would thrive, side by side, as equals, standing tall against whatever the future might hold. With our heads held high, we would ensure that our voices echoed throughout the hills for generations to come.